Hello, my darling freshman. Hello. Look who's here with me. She doesn't like it when I talk very loud. If she is just not the cutest thing you've ever seen, look at this belly. Hey. Hey, everyone. I'm an internet star. Okay. So excuse you. Okay, so I am going to do a first little activity with you. This is called Someone Might Be Watching, an introduction to the dystopian fiction. BT dubs, I'm coming to you live from my craft room slash storage room. So it's a little messy, but you know what? It's decent lighting, and there we go. Okay. So this is a little introduction to our next unit, which sadly, I really wanted to be able to do this with you in the classroom, but the Rona came in and ruined life for everybody. So, because I know you guys like to be read to, I'm going to be reading this to you, and then I'll read the corresponding short stories with this unit as well. Just give me a chance to record and upload. It does take a minute to do this kind of stuff. Okay, walking through carnivals, we love to laugh at the versions of ourselves that appear in the Funhouse Mirror. We delight in taking selfies with filters that artificially bulge out our noses or shrink our mouths, but sometimes these distortions take on a deeper meaning and force us to notice things about ourselves. You don't notice that your nose is a little bit large until you take a picture with the filter and compare. Ooh, or you do the wrong angle. We know selfies. The version of yourself in the mirror that shows you things about yourself. Dystopias are usually constructed through this type of magnification. But the subject matter goes far beyond the noses and lips. The authors take troubling aspects of their own society and imagine a world where they are taken to the extreme. The 21st century tendency to over-document through the use of technology becomes a compulsion acted out through the literal recording of our memories. To think about it. There was once a time in American culture or world culture where we did not have cameras at all. Imagine that. Imagine how many selfies that you take a day or a week, how many Snapchats you send. An interesting thing comes about and you get out your video. We didn't have any of this. I think there were more pictures taken in the year 2018, I think, than there was in the entire 1900s or something like that. I'll look up that fact for you. And I'll send it to you or put it in the description of this video. And I'm still learning YouTube, so bear with me, y'all. But we over-document things. So sometimes things seem a little bit worse than they are, or they seem inaccurate. So one thing that I've been seeing on my Facebook today was that Republicans have rejected the stimulus bill. And if you don't know about the stimulus bill, basically with the coronavirus, all these people are being left out of work because the restaurants have shut down. So waitresses lost their job, bars and clubs shut down. So that's your musical act, that's your security guards, that's your bartenders, that's your food servers, your waitresses and your waiters. And now all non-essential employees are being sent home. Some people, like myself, are fortunate enough to work from home. My brother is also working from home. He does tech for GE. But some people are just straight up out of a job. And it's really sad. So people are waiting on this stimulus check. And like Bernie Sanders, for example, he's running for president of the Democratic Party. He supports everyone getting $2,000. President Trump supports $1,000. And just as of Friday, the Democrats rejected the stimulus bill. They rejected it, said no way. Now, they did this for various reasons that I'm not going to get into you with because I'm not a government teacher. But if you want me to get into it, I will, and I'll make a video about it. But what people are forgetting is that the Republicans denied it first. so soon we forget. You know how quickly old news, fake news, real news, it all moves through, okay? People have already forgotten about the Republicans denying it back in early March because they're so focused on the Democrats denying it now. What I can see is that I think it's sad that both parties won't come to an agreement to help the people and give them the stimulus check that President Donald Trump has recommended for us. But that's neither here nor there. But it's the over-magnification that we're getting back to. All right, so back to our reading. An invasive state becomes one that criminalizes thoughts. A love of reality television and saturation of violence becomes a society where teens are forced to fight to the death for entertainment. Who's got the clickbait? Who's got the best YouTube video? Who's got the best Snapchat? Who's got that? TikTok, I know you guys like TikTok. Who's got the best TikTok? Because of how they are constructed, dystopias are often seen as a desperate warning sign. Warning. The truth is, dystopian fiction presents a funhouse mirror of our collective selves. It forces the audience to stare, transfixed all of the small flaws in which the mirror have become pronounced enough to produce a monster. Our term dystopia stems from another world, Utopia. The English word utopia comes from the Greek meaning not, topos meaning place. It translates literally to no place or nowhere. Thomas More coined the term in 1516 when he published a book that described a perfect fictional society. He titled the book Utopia to emphasize that he was describing a made-up place that he considered perfect. The perfection that More and other philosophers who wrote about utopias imagined was never intended to be real. Philosophers from More to Plato understood that the perfection that they wrote about did not exist in reality. It was no place. Now, another utopia in text or literature or history, whatever you want to say, that has been written about, but is not mentioned in this article, would be the Garden of Eden. Obviously, before Eve ate the apple. It was an absolute perfect place without any troubles or anything like that. That would be another fuzzy wuzzy. That would be another utopia. If you think of dystopian literature as holding up a funhouse mirror to society, you can also think of utopian literature as retouching a photo of society. So we got this extended metaphor here, okay, folks? When you compare two things, this would be like our social media culture with a genre here, and you write about it for a long time, not just a short time. That's an extended metaphor. The overly perfected image is less concerned with reality than showing us as an unobtainable perfection. But by the 1900s, for the first time in human history, perfection like that seemed possible for society. Technological advances had spurred on the Industrial Revolution. Philosophers and politicians saw this automation and excuse me, for the first time, a vision of world without difficulty, toiling, of physical labor seemed not only possible but likely. Economic theories envisioned a world without staggering class inequality or crippling poverty. As the turn of the century, the predominant view was that humanity constantly progressed. History was seen as one long forward march that would lead inevitably to perfection. However, throughout the 1900s, no matter how much humanity progressed, perfection was never achieved. The promises of technology, sociopolitical theory, only resulted in war, poverty, famine, and chaos, and disease, obviously. Look at the Rona. As the century progressed, authors began to question the idea that societies would be attempting perfection at all by writing dystopian fiction. Dystopia stems from two Greek words that translate into a bad place. It describes a fictional setting in which the author finds horrifying. Okay, they say the author here, but yeah, because it's usually what the author feels. But the protagonist is struggling here. Usually the protagonist is saying, what the heck is going on around here? Something is not right. Something doesn't feel right. Lost my place. But unlike other genres, dystopias prod the audience in examining contemporary political and social structures. Dystopian authors argue that the pursuit of perfection will inevitably lead not to no place, but to a bad place because of flaws within the system. And they made it in their business to use fiction to hold up the funhouse mirrors to magnify those flaws and force discussion about them. Here's the thing, folks. A lot of people say, let's not talk about politics, let's not talk about religion, but we should. And we should be teaching each other how to talk about these things without personal attacks or getting mean or rude about it. Because if you never talk about it, then it can never change. And, you know, if women never talked about the right to vote, then we might not have that right. And if you think about it, we became a country in 1776. It is now 2020. Women could not vote until 1920, which means the country has went on much longer without the woman's vote than it has with the woman's vote. Just something to think about. All right, common themes and stylistic choices. Since two of the most famous dystopian novels, 1984, which you will read with me when you're seniors if you stay at the high school, and Brave New World first gripped the world, their themes have been successfully reproduced and in other wildly successful dystopias like The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu and a book, and The Hunger Games, a book series and also a movie series. The success of TV shows like Black Mirror on Netflix, highly recommend, but not really appropriate maybe for 9th grade. And video games like BioShock reflect our continued fascination with the worst paths in our society could take. Both famous and lesser-known dystopian works of art have common themes and stylistic choices. George Orwell's 1984 is arguably the best-known dystopian novel. It was written in 1949, actually 1948, but published in 1949, as a description of what the year 1984 could look like with a totalitarianism government, if they were allowed to continue. Orwell describes a province of Oceania, formerly known as Great Britain, as an industrialized wasteland, dirty and rigidly controlled by a political regime known as the Party. He magnifies disturbing trends that he saw in his own time, like surveillance. When we look at the word surveillance, we're looking at cameras everywhere. Cameras at your school, cameras at Walmart, cameras on red lights to see if you ran it, street cams, everywhere. Is that something you feel comfortable with? I don't know. A lot of you have a webcam on your Chromebook or laptop at home. Mark Zuckerberg, for example, he puts a little piece of tape over his webcam because he doesn't trust his government. He feels like his government could tune in at any time and watch him. I mean, like, just imagine if you had your laptop off, but you were changing for the pool. Ain't nobody wanting to see that, okay? And that's why he puts the tape over his webcam. We wouldn't want someone to see that. Government control and industrialization. Now, we live in America, which is pretty free, but the government is taking control right now by not letting us leave our houses unless it's completely necessary. I get that it's a health crisis, but that is government control. And industrialization, that basically means technology. So technology is really rad and it's really cool because I can do stuff like this. But at the same time, technology is also scary and creepy. I mean, there are people that lose their jobs because of robots, technology. There are students that do full online school, so that puts a teacher out of a job. Robots on a conveyor belt and stuff like that. Technology is scary, and I would be interested in looking at a decade-long suicide rate on how it's grown with social media, because you've all seen those stories, those awful, poor stories about students who are getting bullied online or whatever, and then they choose to make a very permanent choice to a very temporary situation. But it's a thing. Technology is scary. People play God with technology. Anyways, to show how negative they were. Despite the promise that people in his own time saw, Orwell pointed out these flaws that he had. 1984 and other dystopias that examine surveillance magnify how people act differently when someone is watching or being perceived as being watched. As technology allows for the constant possibility that someone might always be watching you, whether it's the government, your friends, your family, and that you might act differently in response to this. If it is possible to be under surveillance at any time, people act as if they are always under surveillance. Dystopias often magnify this idea to show how surveillance erodes freedom and natural thought. Another common theme in dystopian fiction revolves around the downside of human intervention in health and genetics. Throughout the entirety of history, humans have suffered from illness and poor health. Sometimes this occurs in huge bursts, such as the Spanish flu in 1918, which BT dub, the coronavirus is absolutely 100% being compared to the Spanish flu. So I highly recommend seeing those comparisons. The Spanish flu in 1918, it says, which killed more people than WW1. Okay, the coronavirus, it's being compared to that. And if you're in my journalism class, then you know, because we did a whole thing on pandemics and how the media portrays them and whatnot. Sorry, I digress. But a sidebar fact, and you've probably seen this about the Rona, it only likes tepid temperatures. So once summer gets here, a lot of the coronavirus will be cleared out. And the Spanish flu was the exact same way. Very cool, folks. Very cool. Back to my reading here, sorry. More often, it is a simple result of aging. However, scientists now believe that the first person who will live to be 150 years old has already been born, and that the eradication of diseases like cancer and influenza are within our reach. I sort of disagree. I don't know. In addition, genetic research offers the possibility of eliminating killers and like heart disease and chronic illnesses like asthma. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World and 1997 movie Gattaca explore the possibilities of this type of progress. Both examine themes around what happens to humanity when too many natural obstacles are removed, or when genetic engineering can eliminate flaws. Brave New World and other dystopias that examine health and genetics magnify what has happened when humans don't face natural problems and when the differences in genetics are treated as differences in destiny. For example, I watched a documentary on 2020 growing up. I think I was in high school. And this guy, he had his daughter. She had a lot of breathing problems, asthma, a lot of health problems, allergies. And the doctor actually said that his wife was cleaning the house too much because she did not expose her immune system, the baby's immune system, to enough dirt and like germs and dirty things when she was a baby and toddler, that she had a weakened immune system growing up. So that's not good, but that's like trying to take away those natural obstacles. That's not always good. Dystopian literature also often chooses to magnify the perils of misinformation, going back to what I was saying about Facebook here. Characters in dystopias are often told incorrect information about history by their governments or society. For example, most of the characters in the Hunger Games have an incorrect understanding of what life in the other districts is like. This is why we should talk about politics and religion and those big issues, because if we keep each other ignorant, that's not good, because we don't know who's living unfairly or poorly or who's being lied to. Characters in dystopias are often given incorrect information and isolated from anyone that they could confirm or discuss the information that they were given with. People in our world also often given poor information, are too isolated to investigate the information. Did you know that if you share a bunch of Republican stuff on Facebook, it does an algorithm where it will show you more Republican stuff? It does the same thing with Democratic. It does the same thing if you were a Christian versus like a Jewish person. If you share a lot of stuff about diamond rings, the algorithm is going to bring you more stuff about diamond rings. It's creepy and weird. Dystopian literature highlights why this is a problem. Because of the information that they are given, characters in dystopias act differently. They can be conceived to hate people. They have things in common with, or to be happy with, the meager life that they have because they are convinced that it is far better than what existed in the past. Not always the case. In dystopian literature, misinformation helps to keep inefficient and unfair systems in a place because characters are convinced that they are efficient and fair. A final theme in dystopian literature is the lack of individuality. One of the most striking images from The Handmaid's Tale is the dress code. I can upload a picture of that if you want me to. Yeah, I'll put it on your Google Drive. Women are forced to wear outfits that correspond to their social status, and no one's given any choice. In some dystopias, the lack of choice is enforced by the government. In others, it is enforced by friends and social codes, or enforced through a corporation like 2008 movie Wall-E, which I love. Authors of dystopias who imagine a world without individuality are concerned with the idea that the wisdom of the crowd can stifle the wisdom of the individual. Authors often chose to magnify this trait by emphasizing a lack of choice in simple items like clothing, food, or toothpaste. It showcases a lack of choice and individuality in larger areas like family structure or careers. Dystopias tend to have common themes and styles because they reflect the society that we live in. Surveillance is frequently a theme in dystopian literature because we are continually worried about it. The dark side of too much health and genetics research is a common theme because technology furthers the possibilities of genetics and health research literally every day. Misinformation, totalitarianism, and lack of individuality are all problems that exist in the world that the authors are writing about. Dystopians are the dark side of dreams. They are common themes and stylistic choices because of the distorted mirrors that the authors are holding up and trying to show us the same things. They are trying to give us the same warnings, what the world might look like if we take our quest for perfection too far. And the thing is, too, this is something that the article doesn't mention, and I would be mentioning this in class if we were reading it together, which is, we talked about the Utopia, which is the perfect world. That would be like the Garden of Eden. An anti-Utopia is a bad world, scary world. We don't even try. But a dystopian is weird because if you imagine the Garden of Eden to be white and the Garden of Eden to be white and an anti-utopia to be black, well, a dystopia is the gray matter in between, because with dystopians, they pretend like they're really good on the outside. They say, we do this because of this. For example, we're on lockdown because it will keep our citizens safe from getting the coronavirus, which is true. But I think maybe what's not being talked about enough is mental illness in this case, for example, because some people thrive on seeing others. And I just would not want anybody to hurt themselves or anything because they're not seeing their friends or their family or whatever. So that's like a dystopian. It looks good on the outside. And it says, we have all these cameras and all this military control and everything because this is what our citizens need. So it looks good on the outside, but inside, oof. Big oof. It's very unpleasant. So your questions here. So I'm going to do a couple with you and then leave a couple to your own devices, of course. So the first one says, Part A, which of the following identifies the author's main claim to the text? A, dystopian fiction exaggerates existing problems in our reality to show readers what could happen if society continues down this path. B, both utopian and dystopian fiction are used to warn readers about the risks of attempting to alter society. Well, we can already eliminate B because it says both utopian and dystopian are used to warn. No, a utopian's about the perfect society. So that's not warning of us anything. So automatically eliminate B. C, while the dystopian fiction is entertaining to read, it doesn't reflect realistic concerns with our current society or possible future society. No, we can eliminate that as well because we have lots of concerns about technology and technology going too far and surveillance. We talk about this kind of stuff all the time, just in normal society. So we also said that dystopian fictions in our reading, based on our reading, is specifically used for warning. And D, both utopian and dystopian fiction are used to distort reality. Ugh, I don't even need to read the rest of that option. We can eliminate that as well because the utopian fiction does not distort reality at all. So our answer through process of elimination is A. Now, number 2 for Part B, I'm not going to do that one with you. I'm going to leave that to your own devices. But let's look at Part 3. It says, how does the author's discussion of George Orwell's 1984 contribute to the text, which is paragraph 8? So first we have to go back to paragraph 8, which is on, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8. Page 2. It's this biggie right here. And it says, how does the author's discussion of George Orwell's 1984 contribute to the text? So A, it proves how unrealistic dystopian fiction portrays social and political issues. Well, we already know we can do that process of elimination, because the whole thing that we've been reading in multiple pages here is that dystopian, they depict the real things that are happening, just in an exaggerated way. So like, it'd be like if someone had lips, but then they got lip injections. Okay, it's our same lips, but it's just very exaggerated. All right. B, it gives examples of how dystopian fiction is based on what the author observed. Okay, that's actually true. So we'll hold on to B for a second. C, it shows how our society can avoid becoming the world depicted in 1984. I don't remember reading that, but we'll hold on to it. And D, it stresses how inevitable it is for our society to become the society depicted in 1984. No, okay. Warning, warning. Okay, we got that in question 1. We know that it's a warning, so by process of elimination, D. So now we've got B and C. So now we've got to look at specifically what the article mentioned. Gives examples of how dystopian fiction is based on what the author observed. Did it say that in the article? Yes, it did. All right, C, it shows how our society can avoid becoming the world depicted in 1984. I don't think it ever said that. So we're going to go with B. Number 3 is B. All right, so let's look at number 4, the first kind of like written response. It says, in the context of this text, how does dystopian fiction present through the power of fear? All right, how could dystopian or utopian fiction be used to manipulate readers? Okay, well, from the beginning, we wrote about, we read about the warning. So I'm going to put that the dystopian society rules through fear. The dystopian literature teaches us, it warns us again, that if you allow fear to capture you, you will become an easy target because you'll stop fighting. And, you know, can you imagine if the rebels wouldn't have fought the Revolutionary War? If they would have just done what the king told them to do, you know, back in England, we might not have a country today. Let's look at number 5. It says, in the context of the text, what will the future look like? Are either dystopian or utopian realistic for the future? Why or why not? So for this one, for number 5, I'm going to put that it is a good warning for what the future could look like The Simpsons, they keep doing it. And are dystopians or utopians possible? I would say, sadly, for our society and here in America, that a utopia is not possible because it's just too perfect. It literally cannot happen. Not while you're alive, anyways. After death, that depends on your religion. But for our life on earth, a utopia will never happen. As long as we have politics and money, it will never happen. But I do think that dystopians can happen because, like in George Orwell's 1984, they mention in his novel, he has drones. He has cameras everywhere. He's got a harsh ruler. All of these things have happened, and they are slowly happening more and more. He's got a lot of government control, and I think that's a perfect example of what's going on with the Rona right now. It's government control. And, you know, we've seen the surveillance with traffic light cameras and street cameras and cameras at school, things like that. So a dystopian is a good look into the future. Yes, sadly. And then number 6, I'm going to leave to your own devices, okay? And you can submit this by taking a photo of it if you want. You can type out the answers in a Google Doc and send it to me, or you can type out the answers in an email and send it to me. All of those things are cool with me, okay? Happy Corona, wash your hands, miss you guys.